At this time, we're ready for the third group. If you would help me in welcoming the group from Edison State Community College, Laura Larger and Dr. Andy Runyon.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Andy Runyon. I'm Dean for Professional and Technical Programs at Edison State Community College. I'm joined this evening by Laura Larger. Laura is a former police officer and currently serves as our criminal justice faculty member at Edison State Community College. We are here tonight to present a project that we call Prepared. Project Prepared is sponsored by our criminal justice programs at the college as well as our campus police force. It's also supported by local law enforcement agencies and schools.
To get started, I'm going to ask all of you to use your imaginations. If there was a fire in the building right now, can you think of at least 2 ways to get out, other than how you entered? Now, what if you were in the restroom and needed to find a different route altogether from what you just imagined? Why do I ask? What if the obstacle in that scenario isn't a fire, but an active intruder? Would you be prepared? Now, our intention's not meant to scare anyone. Much like with sports, you play how you practice. It's why schools have required fire and tornado drills for decades. We can all remember to stop, drop, and roll, but are we and our first responders prepared to deal with an active intruder?
We have schools from pre-K to higher education with thousands of students in those classrooms every day here in Piqua. It's unfortunate today that those students have to learn how to use the furniture to be able to hide or protect themselves from an armed intruder. Did you know that the leg of this chair can be used to keep a door from being opened? Or did you ever imagine having to use it as a weapon to protect your students' lives? Project Prepared is going to provide a new training resource for active intruder situations using a virtual reality training system. The system allows those participating to be immersed in realistic training scenarios. Instructors can change the situation in response to what the individuals are doing in training, and they can record it to be able to provide feedback. It's an extremely portable system that allows 1 to 4 users to be able to cooperate together in a training exercise at a time using virtual reality headsets.
For law enforcement, this training provides the opportunity for realistic, judgment-based scenarios that cannot be created through simple in-person role play that we currently use. It also allows them to see the scenario played back so that they can gain additional feedback and learn how to improve and as a result better serve our community. For those who are unarmed, this system will help them to be educated on what law enforcement response would look like, but also help them to understand what they could do in the event of an active intruder.
Edison State is currently remodeling a classroom space to house this equipment. The initial budget of $62,500 will come from your support here this evening, from the department budgets that are using the equipment, as well as from our college foundation. That will support 2 sets of equipment so that 2 people can be participating in an activity at a time. The time frame for this project is have everything up and running by our next fall term, and it's going to be supported on an ongoing basis by money from the college budgets for those departments that are making use of the equipment. It can be also the activity from the outside, so if outside users like local police forces want to make use of it, they can do that through our business and industry and workforce training session, which is already providing lots of training across the community. Our vision for the program is to have it used by all of our criminal justice programs. It's also going to be used by a new program that the Upper Valley Career Center is beginning this fall for first responders, and that's going to be housed in our facilities. It could be used by our local law enforcement agencies, staff from the schools. It could also be used by your own local businesses. What would staff at your business do in the case of an armed intruder? Help us provide the resources so that you can be prepared.
We all watched and read how officers at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, waited over an hour for additional resources before they entered the school. With proper training, they would not have waited. With this virtual reality training system, we can make a positive impact in our community, ensuring our law enforcement officers are prepared. Sadly, we all recognize many of these cities and schools who have faced these tragedies. In the first 61 days of this year, we've already had 80 mass shootings in the United States. We never want to see Piqua, Ohio on one of these lists, and that's why we are here.
Help us train our first responders using virtual reality so we can all be prepared when an unwanted intruder becomes your reality. Thank you.
I will now give the floor to the judges once again for the question and answer session.
Are there other agencies or schools in this area that are utilizing this technology now?
Well, we actually have, as you see here, some headsets that are being used not for this particular purpose, but we have it for training in things like robotics, programmable logic controllers. So there are schools that are using it for different kinds of applications now, yes. Much cheaper way of creating scenarios, and in a case like this, much more realistic scenarios than just putting a few couches in a room and pretending you have a crime scene. So yes, there are schools that are making use of it.
So it's software driven, I assume, right? Is that something that needs constant upgrades, and what's, I guess, the cost associated with that?
It does have software, yes, that creates the scenarios and then sends that basically to the headsets. The initial purchase will provide us lots of different scenarios. The support for ongoing upgrades from it would come from the department budgets that will be making uses of it, as I mentioned. As we have outside community users using it as well, there will be some fees just to be able to keep up the technology and support it. I don't know what upgrades cost for the system at this point in time, though. We'd have to look into that.
We are going to have a fund established with the Edison State Fund, so that way the money from our budgets each year is held back for that purpose. So it's not something where there's a high cost and we haven't prepared for it. Yeah. We're establishing that fund to prepare for that cost.
Thank you. You mentioned partnerships with local agencies. Could you elaborate on if you already have some established police departments that want to utilize this technology, and elaborate on how that would shape the success of this project?
You want to? We have been in contact, as we said, with Piqua Police and with the Miami County Sheriff. We do envision that it would be used much more broadly than that, but they have said yes, they are interested in working with us on it, creating scenarios. We also talked to Piqua City Schools because we envision school staff participating in that as well, and participating potentially along with police officers, so that those school staff would know, how is this going to work? How should I respond in these kinds of situations? So yes, we have been in contact with those agencies. They allowed us to use their name in the presentation because they do anticipate supporting and making use of the system.
I think for obvious reasons we know why your project is going to help the community. But how do you measure the success of it?
Well, each one of the uses of the project, especially with our students, with the Career Center students, are part of classes. So we are doing assessments all the way along on how the students are doing, learning the scenarios, performing in those. So that would be one measure. And we do lots of assessment in higher education and at the Career Center side when it comes to measuring the outcomes of our programs. When it comes to use by outside organizations, frequency of use definitely is going to be one big indicator. We want to keep the scenarios that we have relevant to what they are doing. So as long as we are getting continual use and working with them to come up with new scenarios, new ways of using it, we think it is going to be a success for local police agencies. But as I said, it can be used for businesses as well. So we hope he would think about, well, what would we do if someone came in here and had a weapon? How would we respond to that? So we want to encourage local businesses also to come in, make use of that, and maybe you can even do that in association with our local police. So volume of usage, number of people actually being trained is going to be a big part of that measure.
Would there be a charge to the businesses and some of the external, I realize with the schools, and would you consider doing it to the faith community for the churches and other entities?
Sure. For the faith community, definitely, and much like the schools, having them in because there is that risk for them as well, and many of them I know are aware of that. First question, would there be a charge? We know that when an organization first comes in and starts making use of this system, they're not going to know how to use it without having some support and some help. And that's going to cost some for us to be able to provide an instructor. That might be only the first few times that they use it that we would have to do that and provide an instructor, so we do have to support that person and their time. Some small amount there will be continual upgrades because we want to keep the system fresh. So the answer to the question is yes, there will be some use, but primarily that just needed to support the system on an ongoing basis, make sure we have upgrades for it. But we are setting aside money in our budget as well as the campus police force's budget to be able to support it as well. So we want to keep those charges as minimal as we can.
All right, thank you. Once again, Edison State Community College. Our winner with 113 community votes, totaling $1,718.85, combined with the judges' score to win the $50,000 top prize, is Edison State Community.